Hello, ladies and gents. Romie Mojo here. Please like, comment, subscribe. Oh, so this past week, actually on Tuesday with my friends, I went to go and see Queen and Slim. So this is full of spoilers. This is full of spoilers. I'm talking about the movie. If you have not seen the movie yet, do not, I repeat, do not go any further if you don't want anything to be spoiled. If you don't care, then continue on. Now, this movie, like a lot of people are saying, what you've probably been reading, is a modern day black adaptation of a Bonnie and Clyde, but the black version. And it really was the black version. It was nothing like watered down or generic. It took place in the South. And what I will say is, I thought the movie was great. I want to see the movie again because I was just so focused on trying to see everything. Kind of like when I saw Us and Get Out, that I don't feel like I truly just appreciated like the visuals and all of that in one take. That's definitely something you have to see more than once. Now, Slim was the male character. Queen was the female character. They go on a first date. The first date is horrendous. It is horrible. He's religious. She's not. He is all about family. She is not. She kind of comes off a little bit more uppity. He doesn't. He even used certain vernacular, and she just kind of looked at him like, "Oh, really? Really, dude? Really?" And on their way home, and he even ate off of her plate. I'm thinking, I don't know if you guys are eating off of your plate status yet. And I feel like that was also a test. I just thought about that. On their way to taking her home, he thought that maybe it was going to be a booty call, even though she was, a little ice queenish, because she acknowledged that she was being extra salty due to the fact that she's a lawyer, and one of her clients was sentenced to death. And so she had an edge already to her. Fine. With all that being said, with all that being done, what ends up happening is they get pulled over because he swerves because she had his phone. Once he found out that, there's going to be no booty call, he took his phone back, swerved. The officer pulled him over. The officer was already on 100, not even on 10. The officer was on 100. And I was just like, oh no, not one of these. He even, asked Slim to get out of the car and open up the trunk. And of course, Queen was just like, what are you doing? What's going on? Because of all of this, because she eventually gets out of the car because the officer was overreacting, she gets shot. She gets shot in the leg, but it was just a graze wound. Slim, trying to protect himself and her, ends up, tussling with the officer, shooting the officer, and that's when she tells him they have to go on the run. What I like about the movie is not just the progression of their relationship, it felt real. It felt like you were watching two people who did not know each other, who did not even really like each other, now had to, rely on each other to stay alive. I mean, they messed up multiple times. They kept running out of gas initially because Slim was so distracted. He wasn't paying attention to the gas gauge. They left their money in his car. And so then it was just like turn by turn, they had to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And like I said, on the way, like the first people that they meet is this boy who, there was a sheriff that they ended up getting his truck, and he recognized them after he originally was going to help them. And they didn't do anything to the sheriff, but the important part is after they got his truck and they need to get some food, they had this kid, he was a little bit on the chunkier side, who helped them out, and his father was around because I was wondering about that too. His father knew who they were, and his father wanted to meet them. They accidentally hit him, and it was so funny because that was one of the things about the movie. It was it was intentional. They do everything with intention, but it just felt like it was like unintentionally funny. It felt like it was one of those movies where oh my God, this guy's just naturally funny. So the delivery, everything, it just makes you feel like ha 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 ha. And throughout the entire movie, there was just a lot of funny characters. And it also taught you like the different things that happen when something like this occurs, where there's people who become incentivized by this, because we learned that the cop that Slim accidentally killed was actually got away with killing a father who was taking his daughter to school. So that community was just on the cusp of saying, we just need something to be lit. And Queen and Slim lit the match. And they had a car. We find out about her uncle and the issues with her uncle. We even find out that her uncle killed her mom, and she defended her uncle in court because she knew that it was an accident. They had an argument and the mom fell down the stairs. And it's just like, wow, that explains why she's so hardened and also not trusting. Slim calls his dad even though they're on the run and they have to throw out their cell phones so that they wouldn't get caught. He still goes ahead and calls his dad. Thankfully, his dad had some common sense and hung up the phone before Slim went and divulged information, because the feds were there. The feds set that whole thing up. The mechanic who goes and helps fix their car because the radiator goes bad, and it takes all of their money in order to do so. The mechanic's son, who, like I said, he basically, and it's sad because he was a teenager, and as a teenager, he already felt like his life wouldn't mean much, that essentially he was going to die young, and he was going to die, and it was like, for what? Living, and then just to die, for what? For what purpose? And like I said, that's sad because that's realistic. A lot of people, especially black people, especially black men, black boys, don't feel like, not going to be around for too long, because look at the myriad of reasons. Look at all of them. Look at all of them. I just wish, like, the movie's pacing was great. It was a 2-hour movie. Did not feel like a 2-hour movie. I looked at my watch. I said, no, it's going to be over soon. But how we had the white couple, the husband who was, a freedom rider through and through, the wife who was doing it because it was the right thing to do, but she was definitely more so the type of, I don't want any trouble, which there's a lot of people like that. Unfortunately, a lot of bad things occur when you don't stand up for other people. How they hid in their house, I said, wow, I wonder if that house has the same, design and architecture of what some of the abolitionist house had it set up, to where there's many areas you can go in the house to hide. They hid under their bed, and there was a floor panel that was a little bit raised, and that was the opening for them to dig up the floor and hide in there. And how they still didn't break, even though the FBI came after them and the neighbor ratted them out. The car was outside. I was just like, her uncle, who was a pimp, who was actually a war veteran, but he got messed up psychologically because of the war, and he became a pimp. And how one of his women were saying that, at the end of the day, outside, he's a bum. He's nothing. But in here, he's a king. And I said, wow, that's real. From the march that got started because of Queen and Slim, the picture that the young child took of Queen and Slim, that photo is iconic. It is. I said, oh, that's a bad photo. And that's something that if something happens, they'll be memorialized thanks to that photo. And that's what ends up happening. The boy who became a little bit radicalized, unfortunately, he went and actually shot a cop. He actually shot a cop point blank. And it wasn't it was like I'm a man now. I have power. I can stand up against you. I don't care if you're a black cop because you're still a cop. He shot him. You find out the boy got shot later, shot and killed. I wasn't surprised about that because shooting someone point blank, like there's just certain things. Come on now. But it did show both sides to where there's the people who peacefully protested, but of course the protest, it was growing in numbers. So then the cops used the tactics to make people disperse and run, and the tear gas and all of that. But and then there was the kid who went too far. Then there was this random funny character who was really, again, another funny character, but something about him seemed shifty, especially his explanation, and they definitely didn't trust him from the start. And he talked about how he knew this basketball player that would allow them to use their jet. And I guess when they're kind of seeing how they went to this bar or this club, and I loved the club scene, that's where they really started to become intimate. And comfortable with each other, and they were protected because everyone knew who they were and said, no, you don't have to worry, we're not saying anything, you can stay here as long as you need to. But that last person that they worked with, and I think it was her uncle, who it was his friend or something, what sucked about that, see, that's the thing, what's the phrase, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. I think that's the phrase. And that's exactly what needs to be said about old boy with the gold teeth and the weed. He decided that he was going to go and, oh, I have this basketball player. He has his private jet and we'll get you going. So then it was like, okay, tomorrow. I said, I don't like how that sounds. He said, okay, call them back today. It'll work. Oh, in an hour? Yeah. I just felt like it sounded like a setup. They got there. He drove off and the cops come and pull right in front of the tarmac. So the plane can't take off. I said, oh, so this was a setup. This was a setup. He called them in because I think he was the one who, it was either him or the wife, the Freedom Rider's wife, who mentioned that there's a bounty, $250K each. So if we deliver both to us, that's $500,000. Now, the only thing that I forgot to mention was the cop who, he was black, and obviously he had a chip on his shoulder, rightfully so. He was working with someone who I guess was technically, above him, and the guy was saying some snarky stuff, and so then when they were trying to go back on the run, the cop let them go because at the end of the day, he was black and on the side of us, his people, versus the people who more so kind of tolerate him and maybe his existence. So that was a powerful moment, but it's in true Bonnie and Clyde fashion, they did end up getting caught. They got caught, like I said, because the last person who was originally helping them sold them out to the cops with the whole scenario, sold them out, and because we see that, and it was just sucked. But we saw that they didn't give in because it was kind of like, do you want to be remembered forever? Or how do you want to be remembered? Or do you want to have impact? They kept talking about, like, what's your story? Who's going to carry on your legacy? And they were going to be each other's legacy. They shot Queen. And so once they shot Queen and she died, they said, oh, no, it's over. And then they went and shot Slim. They weren't going to go and allow cop killers to just, come on now, use common sense. But because of that, again, it continued to revitalize a nation, a county, a borough. The picture, the iconic picture of those two that was taken. You have to see this movie if you have not seen this movie. If you have, let me know what you think if you're going to, but for some reason you wanted to see it, basically a synopsis anyway. Let me know what you think. Please like, comment, subscribe. I really want to see that movie again. It was so good and the pacing was right. And shout out to Lena Waithe, shout out to Melina. Greatness.